I recommend learning to manually quantize. As you see here, I've done some groups, and this is key for metal for sure. But I've grouped the kick drums together to keep the phase, alignment proper. If you zoom way in, you'll notice, like I said, the transient for the inside kick happens a little earlier than the transient from the outside kick or whatever, and that's you want to preserve that. That's part of the distance, that's part of the space, and as minute as that is, I mean, we actually perceive that. Same thing with if you look at the drums, like for instance, like this snare hit. You see this far, like you can really tell with a far room mic.
That's crazy.
Here's the medium room. Here's the far room. Here's the actual snare hit here.
So that's something you totally preserve.
Yeah, I like to preserve it. I mean, I've heard some people say, "Oh, you should line that up." I'm like, but that's part of this perceived space. You line it up, you're taking the space away, even though that's only like 8 milliseconds of space. You can honestly hear that. So like I said, I keep these grouped. The stuff up top I keep grouped together, and the kick drums I keep grouped together. And manual quantizing is just that. You just are manually moving each hit to its appropriate place. Like I said, for this instance, this kick drum, here's the click. Yeah, it's a little late actually. So basically, I'm just going to throw it on here. Put it on time. And I'm gonna just go through. This is the main. I mean, this is super simple. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. But like
just my own curiosity. Do you throw it on just right at the very beginning of that downbeat, as far as the click goes?
Yeah. Well, this is one way you can kind of preserve kind of an organic sound. It's like if you zoom in way far, you can get crazy. You can zoom in and be so on the sample. And I'm literally just keeping it zoomed out. And I want it in the ballpark. I don't want it so tight that it's just ridiculous. You can't see this that well on the screen, but I know from what you played that there's a tom hit here. If you zoom in, you see that. So I'm gonna grab that. So relative to the click or whatever, we've got an eighth note here. Now obviously we have a click. Relative, say we're looking at the click or whatever on the quarter note, and we have an eighth note relative to the click or whatever. Like we're going to have to do some math. Luckily, you're in 120, and this makes the math easy. The quarter note is 500 milliseconds or whatever, so the eighth note is going to be half of that, which is 250 milliseconds. Like if you get some crazy stuff, I grab a calculator and I figure out. You've probably seen me grab a calculator before to figure up the subdivision, but luckily we don't have to grab a calculator. We know this is 250. So we'll set my nudge up here, and for those of you watching, I'm not sure if you're familiar with nudge in Pro Tools, but all this is you can set this, and you can use the plus and minus keys to the right of the keyboard to nudge your cursor left and right by whatever you set this to. So I'm setting it to 250 milliseconds. I'm tabbing to transient. I'm hoping those of you at home are accustomed to that with Pro Tools or are familiar with that. There's a feature on Pro Tools, is this button here. It's called tab to transient, and it tabs to whatever the transient is. And if you don't know what transient is, it's the attack of an audio.
It's where you see it spike, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it is what it sounds like it is. But yeah, just think of it as tab to attack. So I'm gonna tab to this, and also functions as tab to the beginning of the region. So. But this is the attack of the kick drum. I'm going to tab to it, and then I'm going to nudge it by my 250 milliseconds. And this is where I want to paste that second tom hit. So in essence, that's perfectly quantized. I mean, this is Tommy was pretty much on it anyway, so this is not a good representation. I mean, not a good visual of it, but there will be some more hits that will be more obvious here as I go along. Now, obviously, you don't have to use tab. You don't have to use tab to transit. You don't have to use the nudge. You can grab this. I mean, you can like zoom in and be like, okay, let me place the mouse here. And let me, scroll over to 250 and then paste it. Now, this is time consuming. The tab to transit is a tool that saves time. The nudge tool saves time. And I've gotten to the point where I can kind of shred through this stuff, so I'm not going to bore you guys with the...
I love watching you do it. It's therapeutic.
Yeah, my wife says she likes the way the clacking of the keyboard sounds, which is strange to me. She's not the only person that said that, so I guess that's... But in essence, right now, like I said, I'm putting stuff on time, and I know I'm moving fast, but I want to get through to some other stuff and get to Beat Detective. Because Beat Detective, I mean, this is, you know, you can get fast at this. Obviously, I've gotten a little bit on the fast side, but you can, like I said, with Beat Detective, you can speed the things up exponentially because you can quantize more than one hit at a time. Okay, so I've just, you know, I've quantized this bar or whatever of audio, which I actually just messed up on, but I'll fix that. And one thing I don't recommend, what I'm doing right now, I'm just doing it visually. And I've talked to Tommy about this, you know, I've gotten to the point where I can look at the screen and tell what it sounds like. At first, you don't want to do that. You want to listen to everything. You want to reference everything you're doing. And another thing, before you start this kind of potentially destructive editing, you want to always save a copy. You know, I don't know how familiar you guys are with playlists, but this goes for drums, guitars, vocals. Anytime a heavy editing, like you said, you can create a new playlist that's unedited. All you got to do is, like I said, I'm selecting Option Shift to you know, choose all the files, all the tracks or whatever. But you can just create new and just paste it, you know, and keep an unedited version in your Pro Tools session. So you can, if you mess something up, you can just revert without, because I think Pro Tools allows like 16 undos. I don't know if they've increased that with the newer Pro Tools versions, but you can undo like up to 16 times. But there's another way of doing it that I have always done because just I didn't know about this playlist thing when I first started. But I used to use, like I said, the records can only be up to 80 minutes long. So I just throw the unedited version out here. Let's just pretend like this is before I started editing. I'm just going to throw this whole unedited version. Undo all my edits here. But like I said, just pretend like that's the whole unedited version. That's one thing I highly recommend for any editing, especially early on. Like once you're confident in your production editing ability, then you can kind of, you know, you're not going to mess it up or beyond repair. So. But still, it's still a good idea to do that. But like I said, so I've gone over manual editing, and basically, like I said, it's just about putting it on time. Obviously, like if you have let's go to something with another subdivision here. Like here's a 16th note to the click or whatever. Obviously, we can do our math easy. 500 milliseconds or 499 in this case, it looks like, but it's basically 500. So 250 is going to be the 8th note. The 16th note is going to be half of that. When you're in 4/4 time, it's really easy. So you know you're looking at what is half of 250? It's 175. Yeah, I don't know why my brain just went blank on simple math. But like I said, so that's what this 125. Yeah, that's what this should be. It should be set at 125. Like I said, it's very close. You know, we're talking like a few milliseconds. But like I said, you could set your nudge for 16th note. And paste it. If you got a triplet to the click or whatever, like if you're doing something in 6/8 or whatever, and that's another thing I recommend for engineers and producers. I mean, learn some rhythm theory, some basic working knowledge of rhythm theory and melodic theory. It definitely it comes into play, and you're going to need to know it to understand how to use Pro Tools and stuff like that. I think, you know, I mean, ultimately, it's, you know, you can use your ear and figure it out or whatever. But I think if you know just a little basic working knowledge of theory, it's definitely going to help you